Hey, friends, it's Mark from the Where to Gaze Retire podcast. I want to tell you that I built something close to my heart, LGBTQseniors.com. It's a free, welcoming online community for LGBTQ seniors. We've got forums, private messaging, real conversations, and monthly Zoom meetups where members from around the world connect, laugh, and feel a little less alone. No algorithms, no noise, just real people, real talk, and real community, all completely free. If you've ever thought, I wish there were a space like this, well, now there is. And if you enjoy what I bring to the table, I hope you'll find it in your heart to buy me a coffee or even a few to help keep this community going strong. So please visit lgbtqseniors.com today because connection matters and pride doesn't retire. Thank you.
Welcome to the Where Do Gays Retire podcast, where we help you in the LGBTQ plus community find a safe and affordable retirement place. Join Mark Goldstein as he interviews others who live in gay-friendly places around the globe. Learn about the climate, cost of living, healthcare, crime and safety, and more. Now, here's your host, Mark Goldstein.
Welcome back to the Where Do Gays Retire podcast. I'm your host, Mark Goldstein. Today we're traveling, at least in spirit, to southern France, to the beautiful city of Montpellier. It's often called a Mediterranean gem. But what does retirement life really look like there, especially for the LGBTQ community? Joining me today is Lloyd Meeker. Hi, Lloyd.
Hi.
Who's going to give us an inside scoop on everything from housing and development to food and culture and the community vibe. Lloyd, I'm so glad you're here. Thank you. I'm going to tell the audience a little bit about your background. So having led what can only be described as an irregular life, Lloyd A. Meeker can honestly say he's grateful for all of it, and he's got stories to tell. Born and raised in an intentional community in rural Colorado, he's been a minister, a light aircraft pilot, an office worker, a janitor, a drinker, and a software developer on his way to writing novels. A Dodgers fan and three-time cancer survivor, he's practiced and taught subtle energy healing all about his adult life. He sung in church and rainbow choirs and currently channels his passion for music into learning the octave mandolin. He and his husband met in 2002 and live in Montpellier, France. His titles include Traveling Light, Russ Morgan, and Stone and Shell. His novel, The Companion, was a finalist in the 2015 Lambda Literary Awards. Well, welcome, Lloyd. Thank you so much for coming to the podcast. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
So let's talk about location and first impressions. Let's start with the basics. Montpellier gets described as this Mediterranean gem, but for those who don't know exactly, where is it? What's it near, and how does it compare to cities like Marseille, Nice, or Toulouse?
Okay. Well, it's smaller than Marseille or Toulouse. It's just about halfway between Barcelona and Marseille, pretty much on the coast, Mediterranean coast. We're about 10 kilometers from the water, actually. That's the geography. Well, it's a 4-hour high-speed train trip from Paris, straight north. And it's about 4 hours to Barcelona by train and Marseille by train. So really well positioned. It's about 4 hours from Geneva by train. So
Wow. And
very
those,
convenient.
the fast trains, the bullet trains?
Yes, except for Geneva, that's a regional train.
Okay. But 4 hours is pretty good for
is.
all those destinations. So let's talk a little bit about the climate. Of course, living near the Mediterranean means plenty of sunshine. What are the typical summer highs and winter lows? And as the climate shifts, have you noticed any changes like hotter summers, droughts, or even flooding? And what's France doing to eliminate the climate change, if you know that?
Okay. Well, first off, it rarely freezes here. The first 6 week visit we had here was in January. And for about half an hour one day, big fat snowflakes came drifting down, and they lasted for about 20 seconds when they hit the ground. But that was the weather topic of conversation for about 3 months. So it's about 8 degrees Celsius. I've lost track actually of Fahrenheit, so you're going to have to
I'll look it up.
help me translate here. Average winter day is about 8, and during the summer, in the height of summer in August, late mid-July to the end of August, it's easily 35 and often 40. It can be really hot. It gets a fair amount of wind, so it's not a stifling still heat or cold.
Is it humid or dry?
Very dry for the most part.
Hmm.
There'll be times when it's humid, just coming off the ocean, or if there's a bank of clouds sitting over us. But
Have you
that's
noticed any climate change
I don't think we've been here long enough to
to
to say that.
actually
We've only been
notice
here
it?
3 years. But France is of course part of the EU, and the EU is committed to addressing climate change in a way that the United States just isn't.
Correct. Okay. Let's touch on housing and cost of living.
Mm.
What's the going rate these days for a two-bedroom, two-bath apartment? And beyond rent, do you know what the average monthly budget would be for utilities such as internet, gas and electric, mobile phone,
Sure. Well, I can
and
I can give you our numbers.
sure, and a good
Uh,
bottle of wine?
well, my husband and I don't drink, so we'll have to.
Okay.
The drinker is in the past.
Okay, gotcha.
But Montpellier is booming construction wise for housing. There are apartment towers going up all over. And here, the custom is for a buyer to actually commit to buying the apartment before it's constructed. And you participate in the construction by paying tranches of your final price as the building develops. But we live in an area called Port Marianne, which is just south of the old city by about 20 minutes by tram. And our apartment is a 3 bedroom, 1.5 bath, about 90 square meters. So that's about 1,100 square feet. The thing to remember is that air conditioning is not a given here. Kitchens are typically small. You're not going to get these vast, self-indulgent chef kitchens with sub-zero appliances and all the stuff that some folks in our community can't live without. But they're big enough to cook on. Ours is essentially a one person kitchen. Bob and I have been together for 23, 24 years now, so we can navigate around each other, but still when something is just about to be served up, it's pretty much a one person kitchen.
Who
The
does the
different
cooking mostly?
We both do. He does
Okay.
more of it than I do, partly because I've had some mobility issues over the last year, but we also eat out a lot. So, as people do here, the the cost of a simple restaurant is pretty modest. Let's
What
see,
would you
but
say
going oh,
Yeah, what would you say, like, it costs? Do you rent or do you buy did you buy?
we rent. The attitudes toward rental here is very different from the United States. where the purchase of your home is the biggest investment you'll ever make, and you're not a good Puritan worker bee unless you are paying a mortgage.
Right.
Here, people haven't owned their property for generations. In some cases, it's very simple to rent, and it's it's customary. It's actually much more customary than owning. And for us, buying was possible. A typical apartment that we are talking about is probably about 500,000 euros, something like that.
Hmm.
But we felt it would tie up too much of our capital to make it worthwhile. And for us, we're both probably older than a lot of your interviewees. And French banks won't loan you a mortgage unless you are slated to pay it off by the time you turn 75. Well, we arrived over that age already, so it was either cash on the barrelhead or to rent, and we chose to rent.
I think
And
it's
we're
a
very happy
wise
with that.
I think it's a wise choice myself
Yeah,
because
yeah,
even to purchase in any country abroad has so much different rules and regulations than the US does, and it may not be so simple to sell it also if you had to.
yeah. And in France, that's particularly true where inheritance law is extremely rigid. You don't get to leave your home to your favorite nephew. It's already the law already has parceled out that home to all your children and your ex-wives and everybody else. So
Wow.
it was to be avoided. And really, we in the year that we were preparing to move, we rented a two-bedroom, two-bathroom apartment about the same size in Fort Lauderdale. And it was about 3,400 a month when we
I
did
can
that.
believe it.
And it's gone up since then, I'm sure. But here we are paying 2,000 euros a month, 2,050 euros a month to be exact. We pay about 150 euros a month for internet and two telephone lines, cell phone lines. What else do we
Electricity,
pay?
is electricity included?
No, we pay the electricity, and we're we pay roughly about 60 euros a month for electricity.
It's pretty good.
And we're not shy about using because we're comfort freaks and we need light and phones and computers and all the rest. So
Mhm. Yeah, but 60 here, that would be, and then we're in Phoenix, so we'll never see 60. S
yeah,
so
yeah,
maybe the least I've seen is 75 in the winter when,
yeah,
we don't use any air conditioning, but normally it's in the
yeah.
200s or high 100s.
Well, we have two little portable air conditioners, one for our bedroom and one for a guest bedroom if we need it. And so those during the hot weather, those are going every night. And that's our the electricity bill includes that. So
Got it, got it. Okay. So in your case, yeah, it makes total sense to rent a place, so to me,
yeah.
that's a good choice. Talk a little bit about taxes for expats. Taxes are always a hot topic. If you're an American retiree getting Social Security or pension income, how does France handle that? Are those benefits taxed, or are there treaties that protect them? Did you get tax credits into the on the US side? And beyond that, is there any wealth or inheritance tax that retirees should be aware of?
Not aware of any of those. And I have to say right up front that I am not a financial expert. That's not my area. Let's see, our Social Security and my husband's government pension come into an American bank. We pay taxes in the US on all our income that's US based. And then we turn over our documents to a guy here who tells us how much we need to pay the French government. And so far we have had to pay nothing. So what the inner workings of that are, I don't know, but that's the net result.
Okay. So, yeah, different countries have different rules. So you're saying that you file your US taxes and whatever the balance is that you would owe France, you would pay that to France. Whereas in Spain, it's kind of almost the opposite, I think. I think what happens in Spain is you pay Spanish taxes and whatever credits you might
Mm.
have on your US tax bill, you get credits and you wind up paying nothing on your US tax bill. So it's basically the same.
Yeah, to be honest, we spent 3.5 months in Malaga thinking about settling in Spain, and by the end of that, we realized that it was going to be way too hot in the summer, and that we preferred the French healthcare system. So we we decided on France, and to be closer to Bob has two daughters in Paris with their family, so
Yeah, that makes
it
sense.
was a
And
no-brainer.
definitely makes sense. Yeah. So yeah, we're going to be visiting Malaga soon on our journey to Spain. We're going in October next month and November. So Malaga is like our last stop. So I'm looking forward to seeing
Yeah,
that.
it's a lovely city.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to my Spain trip. Haven't been there in 43 years.
Some
So,
things have changed. The ruins are
oh,
still there.
yeah, yes. And I'm sure I've heard it's changed immensely.
Mm.
So let's talk a little bit about healthcare in Montpellier. One of the most important questions is, so how does the French system work? Is it, I believe it's called carte vitale?
Mhm.
And do retirees have to pay into it to qualify? Is there a public and a private? And give us an example of how much you pay.
Yeah, sure. The first thing is that you have to I believe that the French healthcare system will cover anyone who is in France who needs medical treatment, but whether they get billed or not is another question. But when you get your long stay visa, which is a year long, you land, you register with the government that you are landed, and within 90 days, you are given a fairly cursory medical exam to make sure you're not bringing in tuberculosis or who knows what else.
Right.
Very, very straightforward. And once you pass that, you present that certificate basically to the health folks who then issue you a carte vitale, and you do not pay anything into that. That is your that is your card that you show when you get your prescriptions, when you get treatment, everything.
Mm.
So it's very simple, and you don't pay for any of that. Before I got my carte vitale in those first 3 months, because I'd had a heart event earlier on, I needed to get a stress test. And so we were in Toulouse at the time, testing out that city. And I made the appointment, and the doctor, very nice lady, said, "Well, do you have a carte vitale?" I said, "No." And, oh, she shook her head and cast her eyes down and said, "I'm sorry, you're going to have to pay for it." And I thought, well, I have to pay for it. That's the way it is. And I agreed, of course. and she administered the test. And when she was done, she presented me with the bill, which was 176 euros. So a stress test in Florida would have cost me
Thousands.
$3,500 easily. Yeah. So we decided when we got our carte vitale to also get what's called a mutuelle, which is a private insurance policy that covers things that aren't normally covered by the carte vitale, which is a fairly short list, but we wanted to make sure that we were covered. Gets you a private room when you're recovering from surgery, that sort of thing. And we got the best plan we could find was from AXA, which is a huge insurance company, global. And our cost is about 270 euros a month for the two of us.
Hmm.
So that is our total out of pocket expense. And my husband and I have both had surgical procedures since being here for which we paid nothing. I'm being treated right now for a recurrence of cancer, and that is costing me nothing. It's the healthcare system is unbelievably wonderful.
Can you explain to the audience what the quality of care is as compared to the US? In the US, the way the system is, it's pretty much broken. That doctors spend 10 minutes with you. First, you won't even get a doctor. If you're lucky, you get a doctor. And then the doctor only spends minutes with you after, doing all the diagnostics or whatever. Could you explain the difference in France's
Sure.
healthcare?
Based on my experience, which is probably more extensive than some, sadly, but there it is. First, you have to change the paradigm of your expectations. In the US, certainly in Florida, the first time I was treated for prostate cancer, I went to this vast clinic with beautiful turquoise and peach chairs and a swarm of assistants running around. It was a whole edifice. So that doesn't exist really in France. Um, a cardiac surgeon's office might be a single room, no assistants. It's you and the doctor, and they take as long as they need to with you. And then if there's any kind of payment for what you're doing, then you pay them directly. They have a little credit card machine right on their desk along with all their notes. So the overhead is a tiny, tiny fraction of what the industry standard is in the United States. And as I say, you spend as much time as you need to with a doctor. That first time that when I reported for radiation therapy, I'd already had the surgical procedure to prostatectomy. And the doctor came breezing in after his assistant had basically covered everything. But the doctor came in and he said, "So, when are you going to have your prostate out?" And I said, "That happened 2 years ago." He said, "Oh, reset, reset." And I'm not going to tell you the clinic or the doctor's name, but he had no clue as to who I was or why I was there.
It happens
And
often, unfortunately.
unfortunately, and that the healthcare, the health insurance policy that we had in the United States was FEP Blue Cross Blue Shield. So it was the top of the line policy. And yet this was the kind of engagement that we had. So I have how it works here is you find a doctor to be your médecin traitant, your GP doctor. And mine is about a block and a half from my apartment. And I can make an appointment with her probably in 24 hours. I have a good rapport with her, and she's referred me to all kinds of specialists as needed for my situation. I don't want to turn this into an organ recital, so
I have a question though. Are your doctors English speaking or do you speak French?
yeah. That was the one thing that I had to have was an English speaking doctor because I needed to understand the lingo and what was happening to me. So, thanks to the Brits being part of the EU for a while, there's a lot of English speaking done here on the southern coast of France. But I had to find that. So I had my oncologist speaks English, not brilliantly, but adequately, and other specialists also. And my GP is fluent. So
So at
I'm
least
still struggling
you
with the
it's so
language.
important you can communicate. You know,
Yeah.
that's one of my fears. If I move abroad to a country that I don't know the language, what happens in an emergency? It's bad enough here in the United States in an emergency, you're going crazy and stressed out. I can't imagine not being able to communicate with someone in that kind of situation. So,
Mhm. Well, to that point, I think the first difference between the United States and France is the mindset and the attitude of the practitioners who may be treating you in that crisis. You know, before someone loads you into an ambulance in the United States, they want to know what insurance you have.
mhm,
And you may be taken to a different hospital if you don't have the right
right.
insurance. And you may not even get the right treatment if you don't have the right insurance. And here, the mindset of the people who are picking you up off the sidewalk or whatever they're doing is to take care of you. So they
Isn't
take
that
care of you.
novel?
Yeah, they take care of you and ask questions later. So it's
Yeah,
usually fairly
it's
easily sorted out. And there's always someone on staff who can provide some translation. And I have found Google Translate to be a huge intercessor for me, just finding the right term or raising a question on the fly.
it's amazing. People care in places and money comes secondary, or money's not much of a factor. It's your well-being.
It's
Isn't
quite
that
a different
different?
mindset.
Yeah. So, okay, it's state of the art. It sounds like do they have up to date state of the art equipment?
Sure. Montpellier happens to have the largest medical school in France. And one of its major specialties is cardiac. There's
I should move there.
and there's a separate clinic for oncology. It's a huge network of public and semi-private clinics where you can go to get treated. But the university itself is something like 50,000 students. And I think the major portion of that is medical and has been for a long time. That university was founded in 1200, and Nostradamus was kicked out of medical school here for being too interested in herbs and plants. So there's a long tradition of checkered, but still a long tradition of caring for people here.
So, in comparison, so you're living in Montpellier now. If you were living in the US, the comparison, you feel a lot more comfortable and less stressed living where you are
Oh,
now
God,
as
yes.
compared to the US.
Yeah, especially Florida, where,
I've been there.
the social contract, we saw the social contract deteriorating in 2020. one when we finally made our decision to emigrate. And it continued to get worse. So we we were a standard couple. We lived in Wilton Manors, which is predominantly a gay neighborhood city. We had a house, we had a car, blah, blah, blah. And it seemed like we were always stretched to complete the tasks that we had in front of us.
Mhm.
Here, we don't own a car. The public transit system here is free for residents of Montpellier.
Mm.
There are there are now 5 tram lines plus a whole network of buses, and they're nothing like the buses that we encountered in Southern Florida. They're punctual, they the whole 9 yards. But it was really interesting, and this is kind of a side comment. When about a year after we emigrated, I began to realize that I had been totally immersed in the American view of itself and the rest of the world. And as I lived in Spain and France, that bubble started to thin and finally popped. And I realized that there was so much more to the world than what was going on in the United States, and that the stories and myths that I had learned as a student in the United States, many of them just weren't true, but all the rest were so lopsided in favor of self-aggrandizement that I was just astonished. But as I began to listen and learn and converse with people here, it became very clear that the world is much larger,
In the
that there
US.
is far more devotion to freedom and the democratic ideal than really has ever existed in the United States, which was always built on the backs of the suppressed. That's my
Interesting.
I'm not gonna go farther politically because
Yep.
that's probably not what you wanna do, but
But
I have tipped my cards.
yes, it gives us a good idea of what life is outside of the US, let's put it that way. And that's a good segue into walkability and transportation.
Mhm.
So Montpellier, yeah, gets high marks for walkability. Can you really stroll everywhere, like to the grocery, the market, the pharmacy, the butcher, the baker, and the candlestick maker?
I'm not sure about candlesticks, but the rest resounding yes. We have 2 general grocery stores within a 10-minute walk. We have sadly become baguette snobs, and so we walk a little farther to a bakery, boulangerie that we love, and that's probably a 12-minute walk. Pharmacy is a 5-minute walk. As I say, my doctor's office is a 5-minute walk. It's in the same building, actually. What else did we list there besides Candlemaker?
Butcher.
Butcher,
They
yeah. There's I
they don't have them in the United States anymore. It's just all at the
no,
supermarket.
right. And we have massive supermarkets too. There there's one just one tram stop away from us, so that's probably a 6-minute tram ride. And they have a massive meat department. We have a closer butcher who is halal, and so no pork, of course, but everything else, including rabbit, which is a frequent staple of French cuisine. And you can really get anything you need at one of these massive shopping centers or in a local shop.
Like, remember here in the US back in the day, they used to have shoemakers. Do they have them like cobblers still
Yes.
in Europe?
Yes, they do. And here in Montpellier, it's usually billed as sous repair,
Mhm.
but they're usually little kiosks in a complex of other storefronts, usually close to a tabac somewhere, and they'll fix your shoes in very promptly. I
I
wouldn't wear mine in and ask them to, but I'd be
I
prepared
kinda
to leave
miss
them.
that, you know?
Yeah,
It
yeah,
was like the neighborhood grocery store and the neighborhood shoemaker. You know, your heels or your soles, you'd have a hole in your sole, and you
yeah,
please put new heels and soles on. Now, I buy a pair of shoes, I throw them out if
yeah.
they get worn out.
Here, the mindset also different from the United States, where use and throw away is still very, very big. Here, if you can repair it, that's preferable. And you have your shopping bags, which you bring with you to the store so that you can pack what you've bought into your own bags and bring them home.
And you mentioned the tram. So and you said that it was free?
Yep. Free bus, free tram. These are Montpellier has 5 lines now, and our apartment sits near 2 of them. So it's incredibly
Very
convenient.
convenient.
Yeah. But we can walk to the downtown, the Écusson, which is the old city, in probably, mm, 25 minutes, 20 minutes. And oddly, with the wait for the tram, it probably takes about the same if you miss one. Otherwise, it's 15. And what you do is you prove your residence within the city. You go into a a municipal office and show them your proof of, usually it's an electrical bill,
Mhm. Utility bill.
and they give you an annual card,
Hmm.
which you present whenever you're asked for your fare, and that's it. But we're
Wow.
asked for our fare probably once every 25, 30 trips.
That's great. That's
Yeah.
great. Free transportation.
Clean,
That's
well
another
lit,
another
prompt.
plus. And okay. Yeah, I can definitely deal with that. Being a New Yorker and grew up in Brooklyn, all about walking and taking the subway, and public transportation. Even though New York City's public transportation subways are not the best as far as safety.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, that's what I long for
Yeah.
because I don't
Well,
really like to
Montpellier
drive.
is a little small. I don't know what the actual population is. It's about maybe between 2 and 500,000, somewhere in that range. So it's smaller than Toulouse and Bordeaux. And the tram lines do slow down at night. I don't know when they actually stop, but probably around midnight. But we're ancient either anyway, so
I'm
we're
sleeping by
we're
then.
home and in bed by midnight.
Yeah. So that's excellent. How close is the airport to you?
Actually, it's probably a 15-minute cab ride.
Wow.
Yeah.
Can you take a tram to the airport?
No, you can't take a tram to the airport, but you can take a tram to either of the 2 major rail stations, because here rail is the primary mode of transportation,
Right.
and I love the trains.
I can't wait. My trip to Spain is going to be train travel. So
Mhm,
from Madrid to Valencia, Valencia, Alicante, Alicante to Malaga, all by
mhm.
train.
Yeah.
I wouldn't know where the hell I'm going, but we'll find a way.
Well, you'll be going north and south a lot in that because you have to go back to Madrid to go
Yes,
somewhere else. Yeah.
exactly. Yep. Yes, sir. Okay, great. How about now? Let's zoom in on community, the LGBTQ community. I understand Montpellier is pretty decent or pretty has a pretty large LGBTQ community. Are there any clubs, centers for seniors? Is there pride events, pride parades, gay
Mm,
bars,
mhm.
gayborhood meetups, or just different ways for people to LGBT people to connect?
Yes, to all of that. Montpellier was one of the first locations to perform same sex marriages. The mayor of Montpellier is gay, and the pride flag flies outside City Hall as a permanent fixture.
My type of
Uh,
place.
yeah. The thing here, Mark, though, is that being gay is such a non issue that there's no need for a gayborhood. You're just in the life and you're gay. And that's the end of
That's
the
the way it should
story.
be.
Yeah. One of our one of our deciding elements when we were looking at places to live was a community of expats, English speaking expats that we could connect with and refer to as our immigration process went forward. And that group meets every Thursday for coffee at a downtown square right next to the prefecture, actually. And they're predominantly straight, but there are now probably, I'd say, probably 14 or 16 gay men in that. And there are a bunch of little things here. First, there was an organization here, a social club called the BCA, which stood originally for British Cultural Association. But with Britain's withdrawal from the EU, they just changed it to BCA. And they they support and communicate about any number of activities, singing groups, petanque, travel, happy hours, the rest. And we've I found myself in a singing group where I'm not the only gay person out of about 20, and we have a great time. Includes karaoke, which is still a stretch for me, but I have I have performed karaoke, and I won't say how well. But I've also found two writing groups. One is bilingual, and it is basically a group that gets together every Saturday that you just sit down and in the company of your colleagues, you work on your project for a couple hours, 2.5 hours. The other is a critique group, and that is purely English speaking. And there's some really accomplished writers in that, so I enjoy their feedback. And there are a couple of beginning writers as well, so we we get to encourage and help develop as well.
That sounds great.
But
And
we're about to just to finish that, I guess. My husband is a political creature, and he is the chair for Democrats abroad in Montpellier, and they're having the national conference next month sometime. I kind of steer clear of a lot of it, but as the expat group has grown, he also wants to start a strictly gay coffee group. So the women and men who are not heteronormative
Mhm,
have a place to not a place to be safe because that's not the issue, but have a place to talk about things that you don't talk about to your straight friends.
correct. That's why I like gay bars, even though it's in places that they say, it's not needed. I also feel like I could be myself and I can talk freely about, you know, common
Mhm.
things with others.
Yeah, and if my husband and I drank, that would probably be a good thing for us too. But, you know, alcohol creates a particular ambiance, and it's a very good ambiance for most people. It's not bad. But when you're outside that ambiance, you really are energetically outside that ambiance.
Hmm.
Even if you're clutching a, a glass of Perrier, it's just not the same. So
Right.
we have found others, photography exhibits and sports events and just all kinds of things. So we're not lacking for ways to commune.
Meet people. That's great. And I'm glad that you've kind of found your community there and have made community. That's so important in moving abroad is finding your people and making
Yeah.
community. It's really, really important. You
Yeah.
need
It's
to
especially important for my husband, who is very extrovert. And I'm not. I'm extremely the other way, and I could happily become a recluse and not miss most of most of what goes on. Although when I do take part, I enjoy it.
you should friend
Up
me
to
on Facebook.
90 minutes or 2 hours, and then I'm done.
He should friend me on Facebook. I'm in
Okay,
charge. I add in quite a few groups, such as
okay.
the Where Do Gays Retire, Gay Men 60 and Better.
Yeah,
So I have,
I'll look you up.
yeah, I have quite a few. So, okay, moving on. How about the arts and culture scene in Montpellier? I know it's also a university town, which means arts, energy, and nightlife. What does it offer culturally? Museums, live theater, opera, any
Yes
festivals
to
or
all of that.
events?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and a classical season of the orchestra. There's a beautiful concert hall here, which has replaced the old opera house, which is ornate and lovely and has decent acoustics, but it doesn't seat as many as the new one. So you can subscribe and, get tickets to all, or you can cherry pick. And that's just in the classical scene. There's also a lot of jazz and kind of not a cut or two above open mic, spontaneous music. But there are places where you can go and just have a good time. And if you feel like getting up and singing, you can do that or playing an instrument. Visual arts, there are some really lovely museums here. The Musée Fabre is probably the best known. It's a very, very finely curated museum, art museum. Let's see. The thing about Montpellier is that a lot of the art just doesn't stay inside four walls. There's a lot of wall painting. There's some fabulous trompe l'oeil paintings on buildings. There's whimsical stuff with, serpents following downspouts, bollards that are there to protect an area from vehicle traffic are often painted with googly eyes or something. So there's a sense of humor and spontaneity that I find very nourishing because it doesn't take itself so damn seriously.
Yeah. That's nice. That's really nice. And have you ever attended live theater there?
No, because most of
Because
it's
they're
going to
in
be in
French?
French. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I just can't keep up.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Which we'll talk about language in a little bit. So, okay, one of my favorite topics is cuisine because I love to eat. So, tell us about food always tells us a story of a place.
Mm.
What defines, is it called Occitan cuisine?
Occitan. Yeah.
Occitan? And are there
Mhm.
any standout restaurants that deserve to be on a retiree's must try list?
I'm not the one to ask about the high end restaurants because I just don't have the patience or the appetite for those things. the regional cuisine has a lot of seafood. I've discovered how delicious cuttlefish and squid can be, and I'm not crazy about how the French cook beef. It They don't treat it with the same, certainly not the same reverence as Americans. But you have duck, rabbit, veal, pork, and of course vegetarian. Most restaurants that we go to, which are in kind of the middle range, always have vegan or vegetarian options. The food that we like is unpretentious, I guess I'd say. You know, 3 green beans stacked in a teepee is not our jam.
That's like, you know what it reminds me of? I grew up in New York. So if we went to a French restaurant in New York, I'd be like, oh, I'm going to walk out of there hungry because it's such a small plate.
Mhm.
Is it like that in France?
No, no, the portions are smaller, definitely. You're not going to get Cheesecake Factory or Texas Smokehouse portions of things, but we go to a fancier restaurant probably once or twice a year to celebrate a birthday or something else. And the portions are modest, but if you take your time with them, you don't leave hungry. If you're if you're into volume, there are places where you can load up. But what we do is most of the time we eat at home. So we eat exactly as much as we want of the things that we like to eat. And duck has become one of our favorites, a confit de duck,
And I'm sure,
canard, as they say.
and I'm sure
Uh,
the fruits and vegetables you purchase are much
oh,
fresher than
oh yeah,
anything that I've tasted in the US.
yeah. Once a week, we go down to a giant open air market to buy cheese and fresh
Mm,
fruit and vegetables.
mm,
And
and bread.
it's it's amazing to go, first off, to see tubs and tubs of olives and cooked food and cheese and vegetables. But the quality of the produce is it's seasonal, so you're not gonna get everything all year long, but when it's
It's
in season,
fresh.
you get it and it's delicious. I don't think I ever tasted a ripe pear until I moved to France, and my eyes just about rolled back in my head. It was incredible. Or figs, for example. Bob brought me a bag full of he doesn't like them, but I adore them, and he brought me back a bag full, and they disappear in 2 or 3 days. I'm
Yeah.
so
Yeah, so that's what I'm looking forward to also, to sample
mm,
Europe's fruits and
yeah.
vegetables
You
as
you
well.
can also get horse and tripe in the grocery stores, but you may
Mhm.
want to give that a pass if you have
Yeah,
philosophical we've never ventured that far, and I don't think we will, but there are things there that you can buy that just aren't familiar foods to North
right,
Americans.
right. I definitely understand that. Okay. So is it it's a cafe culture too, right? There's a bunch
Mhm.
of cafes that you could just sit and people watch and have a coffee, and
Yep. We love doing that,
I love that too.
and we actually love to meet our friends there rather than entertaining at home,
Mhm.
which is always a much bigger production in a small kitchen. So we go someplace for drinks and tapas or even a meal. Most of the restaurants in Montpellier have a dedicated outdoor area through the winter. People will sit there in their jackets if they're cold, but they'll still meet for a beer and talk and be there for as long as they want.
See, I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cafe culture. I think I belong there. in Europe. I
Yeah,
don't know. It just seems everything that people talk about is like, oh yeah, I love that. I love that. So let's talk a little bit about crime and safety. I mean, I know it's every city has its quirks. How safe is Montpellier for walking around both day and night? Are there neighborhoods or situations that you tell people to be a little bit more cautious? I'm sure every city there
mhm.
are. Yeah, how does it rank as far as even in comparison to a city of its size in the US?
That's an interesting question because the nature of the crime, I think, first off, is different. There's petty theft, and that's probably the biggest chunk right there. Aggressive crimes are much rarer here than they are in the US, and of course, shootings are non-existent.
Because you don't have
Uh,
guns, right? They don't
no,
allow
no,
guns.
yeah. There are areas, and I have to say first off that I've never been out at 2 AM drunk on the sidewalk, so I present a very different kind of risk than perhaps what some people are talking about when someone stumbles out of a club and they get their wallet lifted.
Right.
I've seen pickpockets at work. I have seen someone steal a trottinette, which is those electric scooters that,
Mhm.
but other than that, we don't feel endangered at all.
So you
We
feel
walk around
safe.
hand in hand, we embrace, we kiss, it's really not that big a deal. So, to your point, it took more deliberation to hold hands in Southern Florida
Mm.
than it does here, and to and just PDAs of whatever kind.
So do you feel safe walking home from a restaurant at, let's say, I don't know how late people eat dinner, but
Mhm.
let's say 9, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock in the evening. You feel safe?
Yes, and I would stick to the well-lit streets.
Mhm. Okay. It's also
So,
using common sense.
yeah, but, if I felt unsafe, I would just call a cab,
Mhm.
but I've never called a cab in those circumstances, and we've walked a lot. Missing a tram and the next one is 20 minutes, we're home in 20 minutes, for heaven's sake, so let's just keep walking.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's so different. Here, I even remember back in the days 20, 30 years ago, working on Wall Street, coming back from on a Friday night, hanging out with, coworkers, coming home and getting myself to the subway. I always felt there might be a threat, you know?
Mhm,
Even even here, I live in Phoenix, but I live across the street from the light rail. And unfortunately, that brings some homeless people or people that are not mentally, there. And it's always a concern. I'm looking over
mhm,
my shoulder.
yeah,
So,
and there are unhomed or homeless people here.
mhm,
To be honest, they've never bothered me, never scared me. It's the ones who have an agenda
mhm,
that have frightened me from time to time.
yeah. Yeah. At least they're not,
They're in their own worlds for the most part, and they
yeah.
may
At
ask
least
for
the
money, but
government is not
yeah,
gathering them up and putting them
there is
somewhere.
no, there is no alligator Alcatraz here.
Jeez. Okay. So, for the most part, safety is pretty much, petty theft, pickpocket.
Yeah,
You just have to be aware of your surroundings like you would be in any city.
you keep your bag zipped up, and
Yeah.
it's just common sense.
Yeah. Okay. Now let's get into language. So
Okay.
that's a big one. For those who didn't exactly ace French in school, like me, even though I took French instead of Spanish, how essential is it to speak the language to get by? Can you survive in English? I'm sure you're surviving, but do you really need to commit to learning French to make friends or local friends and handle daily errands?
And the answer is yes, you do need to commit to learning French. You don't have to be, literary, top notch Sorbonne French, but you do need to communicate with people. And Bob and I both started taking lessons when we first got here. And very quickly, I found that it was interfering with my ability to write in English. And so while he's continued on with his French lessons, I've taken a more passive approach, just absorbing the sounds and the phrases. And I can stumble around in a store. I can ask for directions. The main thing is to try,
Mhm.
because the imperious Anglophile just starts talking in
English.
English is not going to get very far. And so if you say bonjour and try and put together your question, they will bend over backwards for you in the grocery store or on the street. It's really it's really a live and let live relationship, so long as you show respect. If you show disrespect, then you're not going to get very far.
I put myself in this position. I'm in the United States and English is the language.
Yeah.
If someone were to come up to me speaking a different language, I would be like, What are you talking about?
Mhm.
So can you speak English?
Yeah.
So I definitely understand. And, you being an immigrant or an expat, it's number one, it's really not the country that you grew up in. Have some respect
Yeah.
and try to communicate in their language first. I would
Yeah.
say bonjour, je ne comprends pas, or je ne
Yeah.
parle pas, or
And that helps. Désolé, meaning I'm sorry, it helps. But a few phrases just
de
to kind
rien.
of set the stage really helps.
Oui. Okay. So, yeah, it's important. I think it's important wherever you are in whatever country you're living in, if it's not your home country, to number one, it's very important to learn the language. And if you ever were interested in the pathway to citizenship, each of those countries require you to have a certain level of language under your
Efficiency,
belt,
yes.
proficiency in order to get it.
The bar is lowered for old guys like me, but it's still there. And language is the heart of a culture. And so you are never part of the culture until you have some rudimentary skills
Yeah,
with the language.
I agree.
Because joie de vivre is a phrase that describes something that doesn't have a direct equivalent in American English.
It means something to live. What is it?
The joy of life.
Joy of life. Okay.
That's the literal translation, but it's actually slightly different from that. It's a kind of effervescent sense of adventure as well as joy of life. So there are a lot of pieces to it. And there's reason these phrases develop in the language of a particular culture because they relate to the culture.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think French is such a beautiful language in
Mm.
itself. That's why I took it in middle school, in junior
Mm.
high school, and growing up. I was like, "Oh, I think French, it sounds so beautiful." But I wasn't really very well didn't do very well in it, but I know my un de trois que cinq six sept huit neuf dix.
It's a start.
Yep. Okay. Visas and residency. Let's talk about a little bit about the paperwork and
Mm.
what visa options there are for retirees. There's specific retirement visas, long stay visas, and what type of visa did you get? Do you have ancestors that live in France? In France, no.
No,
So, are you on a
um,
long stay?
a long stay visa, which is what we applied for in 2022. And we applied at the French embassy in Miami. And obviously, that's good for a year. And you have to prove that you have financial resources to sustain yourself so that you're not a burden on the state.
Mhm.
I don't think there's the equivalent, French equivalent to the golden visas that some of the other countries
No,
offer.
I don't
I
think
just
so.
don't think it's there. So we renew our visa annually until we have 5 years here. And then when we apply, we get a 5 year visa. And then once we have that, I think the next step is we can apply for citizenship,
Citizenship after 10
which
years, right?
which I won't do. I already have 2 passports, so
Oh,
it's as many as I can handle.
oh, wow. Where's the
I
other one
can
from?
Canada.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Hmm.
So, okay. So, citizenship is in 10 years after a 10-year
You can
residence?
apply, and I think it's 10. If it's not, maybe it's 15. Since that's not a goal of mine, I haven't really scoped it out.
Okay.
But
And they require you at least for the first year to apply for private healthcare
no,
with
no, that
no?
was totally our choice.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Carte Vitale is available to all. I think the financial requirement is something like 1,400 euros a month for a person, which is not a lot
No. And
because the
it's a
cost
lot.
of living here is not huge. Cost of food, cost of utilities, cost of an apartment, much less than in the
Do you know
US.
if they offer, like, some countries say there's a main applicant and then a spouse. So does the
Mm.
spouse have to prove less income for the month?
I don't know, even though Bob and I are married, got married in Canada in 2007. We applied for our visas separately, so we each have
Oh, okay,
a
requirement.
carte de séjour, it's called, a stay visa. And we apply for renewals separately. And but we do use our joint finances as the resource, the background documentation for that.
Now, besides and I'm sure that France also has a digital nomad visa.
You know, I don't think it does. You
No?
can, you have to, you can, anyone can come for 90 days. And then they have, there's a limit of 180 days a
180 days.
year that you can be there, but it can't be back to back within the Schengen district. So now you could go to England or something. A couple friends of mine are digital nomads and they've been at it for years now. And I think right now they're in Taipei. So they they just go.
Oh, is that
Yes.
I'm
Probably.
not yeah, I know who
Yep.
yeah,
Okay.
I
Yeah,
know who you're
Michael
referring to.
Jensen
And
and Brent Hartinger.
Brent.
Yeah, I've
Mhm.
known them for years.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, they
since
were
they
on
were
my
in
show.
Seattle. Yeah.
Yeah, they were on my show too.
Cool.
Okay, it's a small world. So,
Yeah.
you know what? I was also thinking about banking. Do you have a bank in France or
Yes.
okay.
Yes. And here's how it works. You can't get a bank account without a lease. And you can't get a lease without you have to prove residency somewhere before you can get a bank account. And you can't get an apartment lease without a, a utility bill. And you can't get a utility bill until you get.
And a part,
So it's
yeah.
right, right there is a huge obstacle. But fortunately, we worked with a relocation company. They helped us get an address, and we leased our apartment through them, and then we got utilities, and then finally we got a bank. And one wrinkle in the French banking system is that they don't really like to give you a credit card. They give you a debit card. And so everything is instantly taken out of your account when you buy it, and works really well for us. It's very progressive. It's just the tap and read thing everywhere. Restaurants, grocery stores.
And I think that's how basically it works in Europe. And the good part of that is, I believe it for every tap or however you pay, it never reads your actual account number. Like there's a
Right. There's an
token or something in between, like
Yeah,
a
there's an
chip or something
intervening ID.
that
Yeah.
can't really be, messed with fraudulently. So yeah, that
We've had absolutely no trouble with our French bank, with our card. Once And this is the thing about France in a nutshell, really, is the requirements are all quite rigid. Everything is highly defined.
mhm,
And getting into the system is the biggest challenge.
right.
Once you're in, you're in. And everything runs on its little rails, and you get your renewals online, and you get do your banking online. We haven't been to our bank in months. No reason
So
to.
do you transfer funds from your US
Yep.
to your French via like Wise or
We can do it via Wise, but about a year and a half ago, we decided that we would get Bob's government pension transferred directly. And so that happens monthly. And that's basically what we live on. If we need more, we can always scoop it out of our American bank account
Hmm, that's interesting. So okay, a direct deposit into your French bank without doing the transfer. And
without
so
a
how do you
punitive exchange rate, too, because the banks don't, they do charge. They have a little slice, but it's nothing like the credit card exchange rates, which are usurious.
yeah, unless you have like a free international charged credit card.
I don't.
So that's interesting. So the direct deposit comes from the US and your French bank automatically converts it to
Yep.
euro.
Euros. Yep.
And so you don't even see.
And that, just as a word for prospective immigrants, in the last 8 or 9 months, the dollar has depreciated against the
Yes.
euro by
Yes.
about 14%.
Yeah, it's 15. It's
So,
85 yesterday.
yeah, so be prepared for a little sting there.
So that's
But
another
that's not the
thing.
French bank's problem.
Right. That's another thing. That's a US problem,
Mm.
devaluing the dollar because of what's going on. But yeah, that was another factor that I looked at. I said, when I try to figure all these things out and costs overseas, I also included FX, foreign exchange,
Mhm.
in there that the euro to the dollar is 85 cents on a dollar. So
Yeah,
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 not too good for
and a
us.
Wise account really helps
Yes.
because it's essentially another bank, an
Yeah.
online bank, and you can do an amazing amount of your grunt work through
Yeah.
that.
In fact, I do. Yeah. have a Wise account, and I've already converted some way back a couple of months ago from US dollars to euros. I
Mm,
figured, why not?
yeah, if that's where you're headed.
Yeah. So, okay. So the community feel and lifestyle. What is it, does it feel like a cozy town, a bustling city, a little bit of both?
Yeah, it's not a bustling city. It's a happy, carefree university town
I like that.
with a lot more going for it than a standard university town. So it's not as seasonal as a university town. But one of the things I love most about Montpellier is that it doesn't take itself too seriously. And so there's this lightness, fun-loving atmosphere to the city that is it's really nourishing. It's very supportive.
It sounds it. Sounds lovely. Someplace that I would love to visit one day. I'm
Will
sure I
do.
will. Yeah.
Show you
Now
around.
now that I'm retired,
Yeah.
I just retired last November, so I'm trying to catch up. There's not,
Okay.
there's a lot of catching up to do.
Mhm.
So, and locals, how about the locals treating foreigners or expats? Is that a problem at all?
I don't see it, but I'm pretty I don't push myself out a lot, so I'm not making a lot of noise, and I'm not saying, "You got any of that pink wine here?"
Yeah, wouldn't
Um,
go well.
it wouldn't go well. But I think they accepted it basically as a fact of life, and, it is a represents a revenue stream. So the economy is strong, the expat community is, substantial, and there's a lot of integration, like the singing group that I'm part of, there are francophones as well as anglophones in it, and so we trade off singing different songs, and if that's any representation of a basic acceptance, then I'd say we're home and dry.
Sounds good. Sounds good because when things heat up, especially politically, marginalized groups are the first one to get picked on, such as
Mhm.
immigrants. So that always concerns me that if I moved to another country, now that I'm the immigrant, will that affect me in any way? So that's important to keep
Yeah.
in the back of your mind.
To be blunt about it, I don't think white immigrants would be the first hit. It would be African and Arab
Hmm.
immigrants, and there's been long-standing tension there anyway.
Hmm.
So and Marine Le Pen, who is the right-wing politician, has fanned the flames of immigration, and, of course, when she says immigrants, she means people with not white skin.
Got it. Yeah. All
But you'll
right.
see a huge range of skin color here, so that's not an issue. Yeah.
Got it. Okay, in closing, Lloyd, this has been amazing. Before we wrap up, are there any words of wisdom you'd like for our listeners to know about, or if they're considering a move to Montpellier?
Yeah. From some of our friends back in Canada and the US, we've got the message, "Oh, you are so brave doing this. It's such a huge move." And yeah, it is. But don't be overwhelmed by the move. Just take it in little chunks and lay the groundwork carefully and work with someone in country if you want to. Not everybody wants to do that, but it it represent is for me, it represented a kind of liberation that I didn't know I needed. And it's shown up in my writing, it's shown up in my relationships with other people, it's shown up in my intellectual life, and I wouldn't trade that for the world.
That's great. What was that one thing, that catalyst that you were what was the last place you were in? Wilton Manors, was it? What was the deciding factor that said, you know what, we're going to move to France? We're going to move to Montpellier.
Okay. Well, we didn't know we were going to move to Montpellier right away. We tried a number of cities and landed in Montpellier eventually. But what there were a couple of factors. First, the social political environment of Florida
Mhm.
was an issue. Our house was 6 feet above sea level, so climate change was a factor. And we realized that we were at the stage of life where we couldn't maintain a large house with a backyard full of over 250 orchids indefinitely. We just we were slowing down physically. So we decided that before we couldn't move, we should. And we looked to Europe because here a basic social contract with citizens is not an issue. Abortion is not an issue. Being queer is not an issue. Those are all protected rights that are now obviously being eroded in the US. And here, someone could try to take a dent, to put a dent in them, but they'll not get far because the EU is a network of countries that each political system doesn't control. So it's a family of countries, and that, I think, is our greatest safeguard.
And those rights are
They're
written
written in. They're
into
in the
the
Constitution
constitution of the country, of
of the
each
EU.
individual of the EU, as well
Yeah,
as
and then every country that joins the EU or is a member of the EU must subscribe to those.
got it.
So there we have it.
Sounds more united than
Yep,
I'm not gonna say
yep,
it.
yep.
All right. With that, Lloyd, thank you so much for sharing your experience and insight. I know our listeners are going to walk away with a much clearer picture of what retirement life looks like in Montpellier. I definitely will myself. And to our audience, thank you for tuning in to the Where to Gays Retire podcast. And if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe to it, leave us a review, and share it with a friend. It's always great to get reviews. And the more reviews we get, the more that I get ratings and more people listen to the podcast. So stay curious, stay connected, and stay proud, everyone. We'll see you on the next one. Bye bye, Lloyd.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Where Do Gays Retire podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe to our podcast and consider making a donation by clicking the coffee cup on any page at www.wheredogaysretire.com. Each cup of coffee that you buy costs $5 and goes towards helping us continue the podcast. Thank you for your continued support.